the AP poll is not as bad as I expected it to be. The top three, Ohio State, Miami, and Indiana, I'm going to have that in a different order, but honestly, their resumes are so close right now amongst each other that you can put it in any order, and as long as you have a good explanation, I can get behind it. I'm not going to fight you on it. A&M at 4, I think that's pretty clear resume-wise. Like, they're not quite up there with those big three teams, but they should not be below Ole Miss or a one-loss Alabama or Texas Tech. A&M at 4 is right. Ole Miss at 5, fine. Alabama at 6, I don't like that. I don't think that they deserve to be above Texas Tech, who has a good win over Utah by a ton, and they have a good win over a one-loss Houston team. I know you don't take Houston seriously, you guys, but Houston's a one-loss team right now. We got to respect that win. Blowing out Kansas is worth noting. I'll say that. It's 3-loss Kansas now, so not the greatest of wins, but still. They're undefeated. Alabama isn't, and I know Alabama's got 3 good wins now, Georgia, Missouri, and Vanderbilt. They also have a loss to 3-3 Florida State. At some point, we have to actually acknowledge that that is a bad loss, and it has to weigh them down to some degree. I'm not saying they should be out of the top 10 or anything, but I'm not going to keep Texas Tech below them. Oregon at 8, fine. Georgia at 9, that's fine. LSU 10, fine. Tennessee 11. Georgia Tech at 12 is a little high for my liking, but I get it. They're undefeated. My only problem with them is they haven't won any good games yet. If we still count the Clemson win as a good win, then that's on you. They're 3-3, so I'm not going to respect it until they start winning more games. Notre Dame at 13 is a little high as well. They don't have any quality wins. Their best win is NC State, but they look dominant. The factors I use, I like the merit-based, resume-based, also factor in talent and how they look passing the eye test. Notre Dame kills it on the eye test, and they have a ton of talent. They just don't have the wins. Their best thing they've going for them is close losses to Miami and Texas A&M. Oklahoma at 14, fine. BYU, I think they're a little higher than I have them, but fine. Missouri at 16, Vandy at 17. I think I have them slightly higher, but I'm glad the AP has them top 17. I thought they'd mess that up. Virginia at 18 is higher than I have them because I adjust week to week, and their quality win at Florida State is no longer a quality win. So, in fact, that Florida State win doesn't look anywhere near as impressive as it did a couple weeks ago, so I've dropped Virginia in my rankings. South Florida at 19, I have them lower than that. So, the AP surprised me by putting them there. USC at 20 is lower than I have them, but 5-spot difference isn't a big deal. Texas ranked at 21. I'm not going to hate too much on you ranking Texas. They're one of my first teams out. I don't think that they should be ranked yet, but a 5-spot difference is not a big deal. The difference between 21 and 26 or 27 is minuscule. That's fine. Memphis at 22, fine. Utah at 23, fine. Cincinnati and Nebraska. My one real issue with the AP poll. Cincinnati, I don't think they should be higher. We saw these teams play head-to-head in week 1. Nebraska won that game. And you have them 1 spot apart, so you're telling me that their resumes have to be pretty comparable if you have them 1 spot apart. If they are that close and ranked together, then honor the head-to-head result and put Nebraska above them. That's what I'm doing. I've got Nebraska ranked higher because I saw the head-to-head result. I watched half of that game. Nebraska was the better team. I don't understand why you would put Cincinnati higher. And some people like to argue it's resume-based, and fine. Yeah, you have to factor in the whole resume. Sometimes it goes beyond head-to-head result. Who has Cincinnati beaten? Their best wins heading into last week, were Kansas and Iowa State. Iowa State just lost to Colorado, so that's not that good of a win anymore. Kansas just lost by a ton to Texas Tech. It's a 4-3 Kansas team. That's not that high quality of a win. Nebraska's best win is Cincinnati. That is obviously a better win than anything Cincinnati has done. Cincinnati's loss is to Nebraska. Nebraska lost to Michigan, who is one of my first teams out. So comparable best losses, honestly. Yeah, it's pretty close resumes, I would say. I think the resumes are very close. Also, Nebraska's second best win is now a 2-loss Maryland team. I think that's better than Cincinnati's second best win, Kansas. I don't get it. If people want to argue resume, I don't get it. I don't see it that way. I think Nebraska has better wins than Cincinnati, one of them being against Cincinnati, and I think the losses are close enough. Their best losses are close enough. Their resumes are comparable, I'll give you that. But when they're comparable, you honor the head-to-head result, because we already know who's better based on what happened on the field. So I think it's absolutely ridiculous that Cincinnati is above Nebraska. Otherwise, though, I don't take any big issue with what the AP poll has done, and that is a big win for them because they have truly been terrible this year. So I give them respect for that. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and move on to my rankings. We're going to see some differences here. So we'll start at the top. I have Indiana at 1 overall. And I don't see a lot of other people saying that. I think most people are sticking with Miami or Ohio State at 1. And I've seen some people say Ohio State, they factor in that they are the defending champs. And if you want to use that as your reason to keep them at 1 and you say they should keep that spot at 1 until they lose the game, fine. That's just a difference of how this should work. I think that it should be based on what has happened this year, not last year. So I do not have Ohio State at 1. I'm trying to do it based on this year. Ohio State has a good trio of wins now. Texas is a quality win. I know they're not ranked in my top 25, but they're a quality win. Washington is a quality win. They are ranked in my top 25, as we'll get to later. And then they have the win over Illinois now, which is also a good win. Indiana, though, also is a win over Illinois by much, much more. They won by 53 points. You can compare the head-to-head results there. Indiana looked more impressive against that common opponent. Indiana also just beat Oregon. I think that's a much better win than Ohio State has. And Indiana's third win is Iowa. Iowa's a 2-loss team right now. Comparable to Ohio State's third best win in Illinois. And yes, I do think Illinois is the third best win. You compare the 3 best wins, I think Indiana has the edge there, which is why they're number 1. Miami's coming off a bye week, so not much to change. Their third best win is Florida State, and that doesn't look nearly as good now. That has to be factored in. Second best win, a blowout over South Florida, is pretty good. And then they have the close win over Notre Dame. I think in terms of those 3 best wins, Indiana still has the upper hand. I did put Miami above Ohio State just ever so slightly. The wins over Notre Dame and South Florida are better than Ohio State's wins over Washington and Texas. Third best wins, Illinois is a better win than Florida State right now, but I think overall Miami's is slightly better. I was really close on that. I went back and forth on those two. You can put it in either order, and I get it. A&M at 4, we've already talked a little bit about because I agreed with the AP poll. I don't think they should be above any of those top 3 teams. I don't think they should be below anyone else. So A&M at 4 fits perfectly. Texas Tech at 5. I don't think I've seen anyone else put them in the top 5. I think they deserve it right now. They look like a dominant team. They look like one of the best in the nation. I know it's just been against other Big 12 teams, so hopefully we find out more at some point, but they look dominant. They have the talent. If you weren't keeping up with Lubbock this offseason, they added a lot of talent through the transfer portal. This is a genuinely good team, and I think that they could win a playoff game. I mean that. I'm saying that seriously about Texas Tech football, all right? I'm not going to be bold without actually believing it. So Texas Tech at 5, and Ole Miss drops in my rankings here. They have a quality win over LSU, and I like the win over Tulane. But that's all they have. That I have to consider. I consider margin of defeat. That's why Indiana's 53-point win over Illinois holds so much weight. Ole Miss barely beat Washington State, and Washington State is not what we call a good team. So I have to recognize that, and that does factor into their resume ever so slightly. I was not impressed by that. Texas Tech looks much better. I think they're fairly comparable in talent. Ole Miss has more talent, but Texas Tech is there too. In terms of resume, I mean, I really like Texas Tech's win over Utah, who is now ranked, by the way. I've got them ranked this week too. I really like their win over Utah, dominant win. I like the win over Houston. I respect it. I think Ole Miss probably has slightly better wins. LSU's a better win than Utah by 7 spots, according to me. But also factoring in everything else, I would probably pick Texas Tech to win on a neutral field today. So when it came down to those 2 teams, because those 2 teams were my debate between 5 and 6, they're undefeated, I would pick Texas Tech. So I put them at 5, Ole Miss at 6. Bama at 7. I've seen a lot of people try to put Bama above undefeated Ole Miss and undefeated Texas Tech. Keyword undefeated. Those teams are undefeated. Guess what Bama is? Not undefeated. They have a week 1 loss to Florida State, and I've seen the argument that they would beat Florida State if they played again. I get that. They probably would. I would pick them to. Even though I know what happened when they played, Florida State has regressed and Alabama has seemingly improved. Alabama has a quality trio of wins over over Georgia, Mizzou, and Vandy. I get that. That's why they are easily my top 1-loss team. But their loss to 3-3 Florida State looks worse and worse with every passing week. That has to be baked in here. That is going to keep them only at 7. If it had been a loss to a better team, if they had lost to, say, Indiana instead of Florida State, then Alabama would probably be above Ole Miss and Texas Tech due to that trio of wins. So I'm going to factor in that loss because I think every game that has happened should matter, not just the wins. I'm not going to turn a blind eye to the loss that they took. You have to factor it in. But as other teams above them lose, Alabama will move up because then those teams will have a loss, and then you can add that to their resume. And Alabama's trio of wins is one of the best trios of wins anyone has. Maybe it's the best, I don't know. But the loss has to matter. So Bama at 7, Georgia at 8. I mean, all we really have to fall back on is a win over Tennessee. I like the win over Auburn, but it was gross. We have not looked like the Georgia teams of past. we look like a 9-3, 10-2 type of team. I don't really know if we're gonna get to 10 wins. Honestly, I'm gonna pick us to win every week, but it's harder and harder to watch every week. So yeah, Georgia at 8. A lot of talent there. Hopefully the team can reach its ceiling and realize its potential, but we're getting there slowly. Tennessee at 9. I like Tennessee's offense. Their defense scares me. I like the week 1 win over Syracuse, and I know Syracuse is only 3-3 now. That's because their quarterback is out. That plays a big role here. I think Syracuse was going to be a good team, but their quarterback getting hurt definitely changes that team's trajectory. Oregon at 10. I want to put them higher because I think that this is still one of the best teams in the nation. I think that they probably are still going to be my championship pick, despite the loss to Indiana. But they don't have any wins to fall back on. Their best win today is, I guess their best win is Northwestern, actually. I was going to say Penn State, but Northwestern beat Penn State, so technically that means Northwestern is a better win than Penn State. Yeah, there's not much to say about their resume right now. They look dominant. Otherwise, they look dominant, but now they have a loss and they don't have any quality wins unless we're counting 4-2 Northwestern, which I think that's a good win, just nowhere near as good as the teams above them have. So Oregon's only at 10. I am keeping them above a few SEC teams. You got LSU at 11. I mean, they don't really have that many good wins you can point to, so there's only so much you can do, but they look elite on defense. I grant them that. They have wins over Clemson and South Carolina, 3-3 teams. That's the best they've got. Yeah, we'll find out more, but they play Vanderbilt this week. That's a chance for them to win a quality game against a quality opponent, and yes, I'm saying that about Vanderbilt in 2025. I mean that. I think Vanderbilt's actually the favorite in that game, so we will see how that goes. Oklahoma at 12, bad loss to Texas. I'm not going to overreact to it yet. I've already said on stream, I don't care. It's fine. I'm not worried about them just because of that game. I think Oklahoma is still a good team. I worry because of the schedule that they have. I don't know if they'll make it to 9 wins anymore, maybe 10 wins. But yeah, Oklahoma at 12, I'm fine with that. I still like the win over Michigan. They beat a good Auburn team. I know Auburn's 3-3, but I think we all know Auburn is a very good team despite 3 losses. Missouri at 13. They don't really have quality wins to fall back on. South Carolina is their best win right now. Lost a close game to Alabama, but as I said earlier on the show, we are getting to the point in the season where most teams have losses, so now we can more so factor in quality losses. Losing by 3 to Alabama is good, and I have them above Vanderbilt specifically because I watched both teams play Alabama. I watched the full games between those teams. Missouri looked better against Alabama than Vanderbilt, in my opinion. This will be settled on the field in a few weeks anyway when they play each other, but for right now, I'm going to say Missouri would beat Vanderbilt, so I have them ranked higher. Vandy at 14, I'm fine with. They also don't really have quality wins to fall back on, but they look really good, and they played Alabama close. USC at 15, I've gotten some criticism for that, not because of where I have USC, but because where I don't have Illinois. I've had Illinois fans and just college football fans telling me Illinois should be above USC because of head-to-head. So let me set the record straight here. I would tend to agree that the head-to-head result should be the main thing honored. But when you factor in overall resume, I don't see it. I don't see it with Illinois. They have a 53-point loss to Indiana, who is my number 1 team, but it's still a 53-point loss. That has to be weighed in here, and they got blown out by Ohio State. So the best teams they've played blew them out. That's 2 losses. Note that it's 2 losses. USC has 1. USC lost a close game to Illinois, and I think they were missing some players. I wouldn't hesitate to pick USC if they played again. And maybe that's foolish of me. I don't know, and we won't find out. But I like USC's resume better than Illinois, given that they only lost 1 game. And now they have a dominant win over a good Michigan team, one of my first teams out of the rankings. Illinois doesn't have the same... They don't have enough of a resume. They have a win over USC, obviously. It's a quality win, which is why they're among my first teams out as well. But also, they have those 2 losses, those 2 blowout losses, so... And they don't have a second quality win that's that good. They beat Duke. Duke's fine, but I'm not going to say that's good enough for them to be even ranked, let alone above USC. So maybe I've got USC a little high, but that's more so a reflection of how fondly I view that dominant win over Michigan. Georgia Tech is at 16, and BYU at 17. I'll kind of group these 2 together because they're very similar in that they are both undefeated. They also haven't beaten anyone that I really care about. I know Georgia Tech's best win is probably Clemson. They're 3-3 now, and if they keep winning games, and especially if Clemson keeps blowing people out, I will add more respect to that win and adjust Georgia Tech's ranking accordingly. However, as it currently stands, they don't have any good wins, and they haven't really looked dominant all year. I also remember the Wake Forest game. They probably should have lost that, but officiating was horrendous. So, Who knows? Georgia Tech at 16. I'm moving them up. If they keep winning, they're going to keep moving up because you have to give credit where it's due for wins anyway. BYU, same thing. They haven't beaten anyone that good. Their best win is probably now a 4-2 Arizona team who got blown out by Iowa State, so I don't think Arizona's that good. But it's the best win BYU's got, I guess. I don't know. I still don't believe in BYU. I think they'd lose a couple of games in the Big 12. Georgia Tech, I think they get to 9 wins as well. I don't know. These teams are very similar to me. I'm not projecting with my rankings, though. I'm doing it based on what we've seen. So I'm going to rank them fairly high because they're undefeated. And they don't look bad, at least, when in their wins. They also just don't overall look dominant. Utah at 18, they're a one-loss team. I know they got blown out by Texas Tech, but I did watch that game. It was close going into the fourth quarter. Texas Tech just overwhelmed them with their talent, and it pulled away late. I don't hate on Utah. I think that's a good loss for them. Top 5 opponent that they lost to. And I know they don't have quality wins to back this up, but they look really dominant. And I am going to consider the win over Arizona State somewhat of a quality win. I mean, that's a good Arizona State team. I know they were down a quarterback, but that defense has been really good this year. That Arizona State defense has been playing good football, and Utah hung 42 points on them. So I'm going to give them the credit there for the win, and I have them at 18. Notre Dame at 19, they finally make my rankings. I hadn't ranked them at all this season. They started 0-2 with quality losses to Miami and A&M. Very close, came down to the last possession. I don't like using quality losses as a main reason you should be ranked, which is why, so far, it's not been much of a factor. Last week, they were the first team out. This week, they jump in. Because now, as the season progresses and everyone's taking losses, it becomes more of a factor. You look at the quality losses, you have to compare all the losses everyone has, and Notre Dame has the 2 best losses anyone has. They're also the only 2-loss team I have ranked, and that's because they crushed the eye test. They look like an elite team. So that's another thing I weigh in, is how you look, and also the talent you have. We know Notre Dame's a top 10 talented team, so I'm going to factor that in. They're talented. They passed the eye test with flying colors. And they have several power wins now. I know it's just teams like Purdue and someone else who isn't really that good. I'm going to say NC State is a solid enough win that I'm going to give them respect for it. And again, they look dominant, so they're moving up. They're at 19. Nebraska at 20. I didn't want to drop Nebraska, especially after getting a solid win over what I view to be a good Maryland team. However, I think that their win over Cincinnati lost a little bit of value because that was the main thing I was ranking them on last week. They beat Cincinnati, who beat up on Iowa State. Iowa State lost to Colorado, so that value, the value of that win dropped a lot for Cincinnati, which is why Cincinnati drops. So, which means Nebraska's win over Cincinnati also lost a little bit of value, and also their quality loss to Michigan. I mean, Michigan fell in my rankings, so that's a 2-loss Michigan team. So their overall resume took a hit in my eyes. Cincinnati, again, they have their best win against Iowa State, but they just lost to Colorado. So that win lost some value, but this is still a 1-loss team with a very close loss to Nebraska. Like, they are 1 possession away, hypothetically, from being undefeated and being up at 16 or 15 ahead of these other teams. But I'm still going to have them ranked. I respect those teams. I think they are good quality teams. We will see if they can keep winning games. They are dark horse playoff threats because of the schedules they have. I think they could get to 10, 11 wins, or in Cincinnati's case, get to the Big 12 title game. South Florida at 22. I want to move them up more. I'm not going to give them as much credit for beating North Texas as the AP poll, which is kind of surprising because they were disrespecting South Florida all season by not ranking them already. I had them ranked this whole time. Haven't dropped them from my rankings, not even once. But I like the win over North Texas, and I'm going to give them some credit for it. That's why they don't drop it all. But also, their win over Florida loses value, again. The win over Boise State is fine. I don't know if that's their best win or Florida's their best win. North Texas might be their best win. I don't know. It's 1-loss North Texas. I never loved North Texas even when they were undefeated. It was like they played close with Army. They went to overtime with Western Michigan, I believe. They have their best moments and their worst moments, but they pull out the wins. I don't know, man. I like South Florida, and I think that they're going to make the playoffs as the top group of 5 team. We'll find out in a few weeks when they face Memphis, though, who I have at 23, purely because they're undefeated, and for what it's worth, they have a win over a Power 5 team in Arkansas, and that was before Arkansas basically imploded. Yeah, Memphis at 23 feels okay to me. They're undefeated. They look good most weeks. Washington at 24. This is the one team I have ranked that the AP poll doesn't. So the AP and I agree on 24 teams that were ranked, at least, which is probably easily the best we've done so far. Washington at 24, they are passing the eye test, and they have talent. I factor in the talent. They have Damon Williams at quarterback. He has looked outstanding every week except for the Ohio State games, which speaks to how good the Ohio State's defense is. Washington looks like a quality team. I think they deserve top 25 right now. They have a quality loss. It was by 18 to Ohio State. Illinois also lost by 18, and their fans are saying that's a quality loss that should have them ranked. I disagree, but I think the Washington loss was a lot closer. It was a close game entering the fourth quarter. Ohio State pulled away, similar to how Utah and Texas Tech went. Washington also picked up a nice win over Maryland, a two-loss team in Maryland who is playing good football. So, I like Washington. I think that they are also a sneaky playoff threat. If they can win the game against Michigan, and if they go into their game against, I think, Oregon later this year, I'm pretty sure they play Oregon. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be thinking of someone else. In any case, if they go into their toughest game and they only have one loss, I think that there's a good chance that they can make the playoffs as a 10-2 team. So watch out for the Huskies. Virginia is my last team in, so yes, I have 2-loss Texas out of the rankings. I'll go ahead and say that's because of the loss to Florida. They pick up a quality win over Oklahoma. The loss to 2-win Florida, 2-4 Florida, kind of cancels that out in my eyes. So that barely keeps them out of the rankings, and they have 2 losses, so that's a factor. Michigan's out because of 2 losses as well. Yeah, I didn't love the blowout loss to USC for them. Unfortunate. Illinois is out. The blowout loss to Indiana, blowout loss to Ohio State. They don't have enough quality wins to get in. If I'm not going to rank Texas, I'm not ranking Illinois. Texas has a far better win than Illinois has. So, yeah, that's how I view it. I say far better. I actually only have Oklahoma and USC 3 spots apart. I should probably not say far better. In any case, I've got Virginia ranked still not because of the Florida State win, because they're 3-3 now. I don't view that as a quality win. That's their second best win now. I give them credit for the win over 1-loss Louisville, who is also among my first teams out because of their record primarily. If you only have 1 loss, I'm going to consider you to some degree. Virginia looks like a fun team. They dropped 10 spots in my ranking. That's how much of a hit their win over Florida State took, because Florida State lost to Pitt. Virginia dropped 10 spots because I don't like that win over Florida State anymore. I just can't. I can't respect it as much as I did a week ago, but I do respect this team enough to keep them ranked. I'll give them some credit for beating Florida State because, they started that team's descent, right? They beat Florida State, and then Miami beat them, and then Pitt beat them. So for what it's worth, Virginia beat them before they were bad, or at least before they were viewed badly. And I like the win over Louisville, so I'm keeping them ranked above the 2-loss teams. You can disagree with that if you want. The AP poll has them higher than I do, though, so if you take issue with it, go yell at the AP poll more than me. But that's my top 25. Unlike the AP voters, I will reply and I will tell you why I have these teams ranked. So if you question it, if you want further explanation, if you take issue with anything, drop a comment, let me know. I will explain, I will defend, because I am open to it, unlike the AP poll.